So I made a video about how these 4 superpowers actually sucked. Not only did it become my best performing video ever, but some enthusiasts in the comments decided to share their favorite superpowers. Some thought teleportation was OP, some believed they could fly, some wanted time control, while others thought shapeshifting would be cool. Well, I'm sorry to those, but you saw it coming. Here's part 2 of overrated superpowers you seriously, absolutely don't want to have. Number 1. Teleportation. This must be the most unanimously requested superpower among the previous video's comments, and for a good reason. I talked about super speed in that video, but why get there fast when you can get there instantly? It's just so convenient. And what could possibly go wrong? Well, first of all, I'm not even gonna go into the generating black holes thing I mentioned last time, because the speed limit of the universe is the speed of light, and we can't break the laws of physics. So we'll just assume you're not traveling, but more like disappearing from one place and appearing somewhere else. But then we run into another problem, because quantum mechanics would forbid your atoms from overlapping with the ones where you're trying to teleport, and you would basically just explode instantly. But let's say you substitute the atoms at the destination with yours instead. Except this still isn't possible because it violates conservation laws in general relativity. Changes in density cannot be instantaneous. So instead, you'd need to kind of get condensed into pure energy and get progressively transferred from one place to another or something like that. And here's where we start getting the real problems. Because everything in the universe is moving, be it due to orbital motion, linear motion, or simply due to the expansion of the universe. What does this mean? Well, say you want to teleport from New York to Sydney. At your origin, due to the rotation of the Earth, your velocity points towards this side, but everything at the destination is moving towards the opposite side at about 1,200 kilometers per hour. This means, when you teleport, you'll most likely be instantly hit by a wall at 2,400 kilometers per hour, roughly 700 meters per second. Yikes. But let's remain optimistic and try to save this by saying that to select your destination, you choose a reference frame and acquire the velocity of that reference frame upon teleporting, saving you from becoming a human splatter. Except we can't, because an instant change in velocity means infinite acceleration. But let's do the same thing as before, make it progressive. Not too much though, or it'll defeat the purpose. Let's say the change happens over a period of 1 millisecond, which would still displace you less than a meter. That means you'd experience an acceleration of over 660,000 meters per second squared, which equates to a g-force, so the force you're experiencing expressed as the number of Earth's gravities, of almost 70,000 Gs. For reference, the highest g-force ever survived by a human was 214 Gs, when Kenny Bragg had an extreme crash in an F1 race. And that was a miracle, given that instant death is expected after 50 Gs. Okay, so if you teleport anywhere minimally far away, you die. Great. But even if you don't, there's more. Because, for example, what if you teleport somewhere and it turns out there's a person there? I mean, there's 8 billion people on Earth, so safe to say that's gonna happen at least once. And as we said, you're replacing the atoms at the destination with yours, you would soon lose track of how many people you've cut in half to send the rest of their body to where you came from. Yeah, the police will not be happy about that one. But there's even more issues, because depending on how evil the genie that gave you teleportation was, he might have done it so only was strictly you got teleported. So no clothes, but more crucially, no bacteria. You heard that right. There's an entire microbiome of good bacteria inside you, which plays an essential role in, keeping you alive. It fights off and prevents other bad microbes from thriving in your body, and is also partially in charge of digesting what you eat. Basically, teleport once, and the next day you'll be dropping dead of a common cold while suffering from extreme diarrhea. But honestly, who cares, the G-forces already killed you ages ago. Teleportation isn't a superpower. It's a multifaceted death sentence. Number 2. Flying. Okay, this one is gonna hurt me deep inside. It was my favorite superpower when I was little. Here we have another case of people wishing they could go places faster. Although, to be honest, I just choose it because it'll be cool as heck to experience. Like, just imagine flying! But could you really fly through the Earth's atmosphere? Well, the exosphere, thermosphere, mesosphere and stratosphere all have an air density of basically 0, so forget about breathing there. That means you'd have to stick to the troposphere, which extends to an altitude of about 12 kilometers. Except not really, because the air density is not enough for you to breathe until about 8 kilometers of altitude. Luckily, this means you don't need to worry about airplanes, which usually cruise at heights of over 9 kilometers. But what about birds? Birds fly at basically all heights, with some vultures having been spotted 11 kilometers up in the air. So what if you bumped into one? Well, these vultures fly at about 35 kilometers per hour. And let's say you are flying at 100 kilometers per hour. Not too fast, not too slow. So for an unfortunate head-on collision, we can plug the vulture's mass of 7 kilograms and a speed of 135 kilometers per hour, or 37.5 meters per second, into the equation for kinetic energy, which tells us that the hit would deliver almost 5,000 joules of energy. Given that impacts start being lethal after about 150 joules, you will certainly be meeting a feathery end. But let's say you get some kind of super bird radar along with the flying. Well, your troubles are far from over, because temperature decreases an average of 6.5 degrees Celsius for every kilometer you go up, meaning that at just 1 kilometer, temperature will fall below 10 degrees Celsius and too long a flight will give you hypothermia, especially given the insane wind force you'll be facing. At a bit over 2 kilometers, it will reach 0 degrees Celsius, the freezing point of water. Well, just limit the height of your flights to half a kilometer and you'll be fine, right? Depends. Specifically, it depends on how fast you fly, because you also have to limit that. Superman looks really cool at his faster than a fighter jet speed, but if you try to go at supersonic speeds, the sheer friction with the air would end up causing severe burns in your skin. Also, at that speed, a collision with a single 5 milligram insect would deliver about 200 joules of kinetic energy, which means that a little bug could literally kill you. Okay, great. So, unless you have a super reaction time or a super radar, which is kind of cheating, and you also have some really good coding, because the wind's current will take the heat away from you very darn fast regardless of your altitude, you'll be lucky if you survive even a couple of flights. And even then, you'll still be limited to a measly height and to the speed of a car, basically. Likely taking so long if you wanted to cross from one continent to another that you'd die of thirst before arriving. Still, it's probably the least horrible out of the ones in this video. Number 3. Time control. Many say time is gold, but time is also like a dimension of reality. So, safe to say, being able to control time would make you pretty freaking powerful. The thing is, when you mess with the universe messes with you. So let's see what insane effects you'll have to face. Of course, there are many types of time control, but let's start with the lightest, stopping time. Fortunately for us, time is relative in Einstein's general relativity, so an object or person can indeed be at a later time than its surroundings, no problem. Also, there's an effect called time dilation, which is where, due to a very strong gravitational field or due to a really high velocity, the time experienced by an object gets slowed down. It's why stuff falling into a black hole seems to go into slow motion and freeze in place as it approaches the singularity, and why astronauts traveling in future near light speed spaceships will age less than people back on Earth. If you time dilated the entire universe but you, which would arguably take infinite energy, but let's just say you can freely manipulate the fabric of space-time like that, you could actually avoid all the problems with traveling faster than the speed of light I mentioned earlier. This is because the speed limit of the universe is, well, universal for all reference frames, be it yours or that of the time-slowed surroundings, meaning that as long as you don't approach the speed of light from your perspective, you'll be fine. Well, then it doesn't sound bad at all, does it? Yeah, about that. How are you going to breathe? Like, think about it. If none of the air molecules surrounding you is able to move, they can't move into you. Well, just add a bit of margin around you so molecules can start moving, right? The thing is, no matter how big that margin, if you don't move somewhere else, it'll run out of oxygen eventually. It would be like breathing out of a bag. And if you make it too big, you end up defeating the purpose of the superpower. Basically, if you were thinking of using your time control to sleep in for 12 hours, I'm sorry to tell you, but you've just died of asphyxiation. Also, you wouldn't be able to see, but not for the reason you might think. Photons would not be frozen. Remember, the speed of light is universal, and photons don't experience time per se. But molecules would stop emitting them, meaning that you'd only be able to see residual light for a fraction of a second before going blind. But this has a teeny tiny side effect, because light from the sun would keep arriving for 8 minutes, and once you resume the time, there would be no new light from the sun after new photons arrive 8 minutes later. This means that every time you used your power, there would be no sunlight on Earth for anyone for 8 minutes. And never mind the effects this would have on global temperatures and photosynthesis. As long as you don't spam your superpower every 8 minutes, that'll probably be fine. But you'd plunge the world into absolute chaos. Millions would die in car crashes, accidents, and of shock in a matter of seconds, and panic and confusion would ensue and remain. Okay, so seems like time stopping sucks a lot, both for you and for literally everyone on Earth. What about time travel though? I really don't want to get into the teleporting to your current location and getting lodged into a wall kind of issues again, so let's just say it's the power to make the flow of time negative for an interval, basically like an undo button, or make it positive and huge, like a skip button. However, this has a fundamental flaw. As you yourself experience the change as well, it would actually make no difference from your perspective. If you use the skip button, you would continue living as normal in a time-accelerated universe. Well, actually, the speed of light would change, which would make many people very confused and mess up the entirety of everything, but you get the deal. And if you undid something, your memories since that moment would also be undone, meaning that if you went back to correct a mistake, you'd probably make that mistake again and use your undo button again and continue on in a loop which would hopefully be broken by some fundamental randomness or whatever. Also, you'd probably break causality as light would continue as normal in a time-reversed universe. Yeah, that's not great. Maybe that kind of time travel actually isn't the best. But what about the time machine type, where you just disappear from your present and materialize into the past or the future? Well, along with all the problems of teleportation from before, I can't think of a way to do this other than making wormholes through space-time, which allow you to travel through space and through time. Well, wormholes would probably require negative mass and huge amounts of mass energy to exist, so you probably can't actually make them, but we can leave those tiny details from when I make a video about wormholes. Let's just assume you can do all that. But of course, there's a catch, because to travel back in time, in order not to violate causality, you could only go to wormholes which already existed at that time, meaning that you would have to create your wormholes in advance. So, given what they look like, you'd probably have to share your power with the rest of the world, who are probably wondering why a wormhole formed from a random bathroom to a computer playing Minecraft on hardcore. And the same thing applies to going forward in time. Oh, by the way, you'd better choose your destination properly, as if you accidentally end up in the vacuum of space, you'll start draining the heck out of our atmosphere. Well, to summarize, every type of time control is either absolutely useless or literally catastrophic. Number 4. Shapeshifting. And here we get to today's last superpower, shapeshifting. The name is pretty self-explanatory. You can turn into stuff. Wanna give flying a try without dying? Just turn into a bird. Wanna get into some super secret base without being noticed? Turn into a puddle of water, or heck, a cloud of vapor. Clearly, it would be super OP as a superpower. Except it isn't. The first thing I thought of was, how are you even going to think? Because if you turn into a puddle, you have no brain. However, With the level of matter manipulation necessary to become a paddle in the first place, your superpower would probably allow you to create information processing structures out of just about anything. No, your nightmare here will be conservation of energy. Oh boy, does it get bad. Let's say you want to turn into a bird, and you choose the fastest bird, and the fastest animal for that matter, the peregrine falcon. It has a mass of about half a kilogram, which means that for the average adult human, you're gonna have to get rid of about 70 kilograms of mass when transforming. Oh, and don't forget that compactified brain. Not that it matters though, because according to Einstein's mass energy equivalence, this means you'll have to release about 6 quintillion joules to respect conservation of energy. You know, matter can't be destroyed, sound familiar? Anyway, to give you an idea how catastrophic this will be, that's around the energy in 28 times the most powerful bomb ever conceived, the Tsar Bomba. I mean, I don't care how explosively you wanna release this energy, you are not surviving that. But it doesn't get much better at the other end of the spectrum. Because say you simply want to turn into a giant, a 10-meter tall giant. That's an increase factor of about 5.5 in the first dimension, which means that for the volume, so the mass, it gets cubed. So you'll increase your mass by a factor of 170, which is around 12,000 kilograms. Yeah, this is not gonna go well. That means the transformation will cost you a whopping 1 sextillion joules. Now, two possibilities here. Either you have to expend the energy yourself, which, given that the calorie equivalent tells us it's about 478 billion Big Macs, you don't, or you take it from the environment. Now, funny thing, it takes about 1,300 joules to raise the temperature of a cubic meter of air by 1 degree. This is called Earth's heat capacity. So, before you've gathered enough energy to use your power, you will have cooled 2.6 quadrillion cubic meters of air down to absolute zero temperature, which is a semi-sphere 215 kilometers wide. Or alternatively, you can take energy from the entire atmosphere. With the heat capacity equation, we can get that cooling the whole atmosphere by a full degree takes 5.15 sextillion joules. So you cool it down about a fifth of a degree. Actually, on hindsight, we could have used this for the size decrease as well. You'd heat up the entire planet a bit, and then cool it back down once you return to your normal shape. But don't think you can get away so easily, because people would notice. Precision weather station, heat-sensitive machines, and the winds, because remember that air expands and contracts with temperature changes. Plus, wind forces are caused by proportional, not absolute, differences in temperature. So there you go. Teleportation, flying, time control and shapeshifting are probably not at all good superpower ideas. This video took incredibly long to make, so I would greatly appreciate it if you could like and subscribe. It's completely free and it really helps me out. That's it, thanks for watching and I'll see you in the next one.